Right, part three of Learn Football with a College Coach. We're going to today talk about gap schemes and specifically counter. And we'll start with the basics and then we'll get into kind of what we did last time with all the variations and all that good stuff. So we'll get into that. I do have my Cowboy connected. I had to get a USB splitter. I was laughing. Somebody commented, somebody get this poor soul a Cowboy because they could hear all my keyboard clicks. So hopefully I got that fixed. You'll still be able to hear my mouse, but there's no fixing that on my end. So um, we'll get right into it. Before we do that, and just by habit there, I pressed my space bar. We'll get right into it. The first thing we're going to talk about is just in relation to last week. So you can watch this play first as it plays out. Um, got the motion. All right, you can see that play out. That should look very similar to what we talked about last time. Now, it's not the same thing. All right, last time we talked about mid zone and outside zone, and what we did talk about is reading the edge. Right, we've always said, right, with 5 offensive linemen, we can only take 5 guys. Right, that's the amount of people we can account for. Now, base, mid zone, or outside zone read, you're going to be reading the defensive end away from the call. Now, if you think that this guy's a guy you don't really want to block or somebody that, for whatever reason you want to read that guy instead, you can do exactly this. You can block, right? You can block this defensive end that we were reading before, and you can read this player instead, and then you can hand the thing off. Everybody else blocks the thing the exact same way, right? And now you just kind of have the ability as the quarterback, and I'm using the freaking keyboard again, you have the ability as the quarterback to pull the ball just like you did before. Now the difference is, right, you're not reading this guy, you're reading him, right? So as long as 92 is respecting the quarterback's pull, you can hand that thing off, and right, you can do a really good job with this left guard to just kind of climb vertically. You can even get a piece of him on the way if he wants, kind of to stay on his path, right? But you got great leverage on number 7, right? So you can do a really good job if you're confident in your left guard's ability to get there, right? All right, but ultimately, right, it's a really great way to kind of exploit a defensive lineman or avoid blocking a defensive lineman. But again, it's the exact same play, right? It's just a different way to run it, which I figured, I'd talk about that just to start it off, because that is kind of when you start talking about these things, that is another way that, like, Clemson did it like 5 times this game. There's another one right here, right? So remember, everything else is the same. They're running strong outside zone now. So what you'll see, right, you get your double here to the plus, you get your double here to the point. All right, now you're going to say, instead of blocking him, right, I'm going to come up for the minus, right? Instead of having the tackle having to try and run to cut off the minus and you block him, right, you'll have good leverage on the minus now with the left guard, and you can block him out. All right, now if you do pull the ball as the quarterback, right, most of the time, since you're blocking out with 71, you're going to have to hit it right off of 71's ass. Now, we talked a lot about this, right? As a defensive line, you're taught to fight against the reach, right? If number 71 is trying to reach you inside out, in this case, it would really be trying to cut you off, right? If 71 is trying to cut you off at left tackle, right, as the defensive end, you're going to do something like he does, right? You're going to rip across his face. Now, if you watch this play, right, and you look a little bit further, right, one of these 2 guys has these 2 gaps, right? However you want to look at it, they're playing these 2 gaps. All right, he is the edge player, right? But because he knows that he's trying to be cut off by the defensive or by the offensive tackle, because he sees that he's trying to be cut off, he's fighting across his face, even though he very well might have this outside gap. All right, and so as the quarterback, you can pull it, right? And now we see, right, he read this. If you're reading this defensive tackle here, he read this as the defensive tackle is a threat to the ball carrier on mid zone, right, or outside zone. All right, so if that is the case, then you pull the ball. All right, now number 8 is definitely a threat. I agree with the quarterback. Usually you'd be right off of 71's ass. However, defenses are trained to fight across reach blocks or try and fight across somebody trying to cut you off. So he does exactly what he should, takes the edge, right? A really, really good switch up, a good way to isolate a defensive lineman. I think it's a really cool play. All right, we'll get into counter now. This is just, we'll start out with the base versions of counter here. All right, now this is a little bit different, but it's relatively, I would say this is just base, right? This is, you're pulling your guard, all right, and you're pulling a tight end backside. I would say that's probably the most base version of counter I can think of. The thing that's switching it up is you have an extra tight end on the backside. All right, but they're running counter to the open side. So what is counter? How do you kind of point it out if we want to go like we did in the past and talk about the points and things like that? All right, so assuming we're accounting for, right, the base rules here, we would say the first thing head up to play side is the point, all right, and the minus is the next backer away from the play side. So we would say, here's your point, all right, there's your minus, all right, and what you do is you double on the front side. In the very base versions of the teaching, you can say backside gap to backside backer. So if we're running counter in this direction, the backside gap of this guard is here, right? The backside gap of the center is open. So you'll watch what happens here, right? A lot of the times you have to go further to get back another gap, right? So backside gap to backside backer, that's the most base way you can teach it, right? And generally speaking, that'll account for most scenarios. Now, what needs to happen, right, is there usually, if you want to run it at a 3-tech, right, you'll double up to the minus, right? Everybody's trying to create this wall, right? So you want to create this wall as far to the away from the play side, as far to the left in this picture as you possibly can, right? And in doing so, when you create that wall, you have a really good chance for the running back to hit this up the A gap, right? If you're running this on a hash, it should hit up the hash, all right? It has to hit up the hash. We'll watch one that's more successful here to start. All right, this is more with the quarterback. All right, but again, if this is going to hit, it's going to hit in the A gap very most of the time. That's how it's taught. Now, there are examples like on the last one, right, where we were watching it, right, and it didn't look all that good, right? We were watching, right, sorry, get back. All right, we were watching this, right, and you look at this, and you might say this looks like a clusterfuck, right? Like, what the hell's going on? Well, a lot of bad things are happening offensively. So first off, right, we know we're going to pull 2 guys, all right? So we're going to leave 2 for the point, right? That's the guy that your second puller is pulling for, and you're going to leave 1 for the first puller to kick out, all right? So the first puller has to do a really good job of staying tight to the line of scrimmage and being inside out so that you can create a void right here between the end man on the line of scrimmage and that wall that you're trying to create. All right, the second puller pulls up and through for the point, all right, and tries to kick him out, stay square as possible, but try and attack the near V of his neck or his near number, all right, so that the running back can come straight downhill, right, and be right off of that first puller's block, kick out, right, and then follow the tight end with some patience, right, and then hit it right up the hash. All right, so what goes wrong here? All right, well, if you're going to draw this up pre-snap, he's got to go all the way back. All right, he's got a down block. All right, he's going to pull. We already said that. All right, now these 2 guys are usually in the backside of a, if you're running counter to the open side, especially with the backside tight end, and very much it's drawn like this in playbooks, right? I've heard it called gap, seal, hinge, right? You want to gap down. You can watch them do it, right? Gap down, protect your inside gap, and then kind of hinge back if you don't, if your guy's already got, or the guy that you're gapping down to is already being blocked, right? Then you hinge back for something backside. All right, so what goes wrong here, right? The defensive end is being taught, and he's doing a very good job of attaching to a down block from the tackle. All right, so he's taught if this tackle goes away from you, attach to his hip. All right, so that already is very challenging for the first puller, right? Because the first puller is saying, I'm trying to create as much horizontal space as I possibly can to this wall, right? The tackle's doing as much as he can to try and stay square, but this kid's involving himself with the tackle, right? He's screwing up his job, and he's making the pulling guard's job really hard by attaching to him, right? And now the pulling guard, you'll see, right? It's tough when you don't get square early, because if you don't get square early, you got to really adjust, get square, and then be inside out to get to this guy, to be able to really get his inside shoulder. Now, defensive ends, depending on whether or not they're the contained player or trying to contain everything inside of the box, will do one of 2 things. They're either wrong armors or spillers, or they're going to be a box player, right? And a wrong armor is a guy that is not the contain player, not the edge setter. He's going to do exactly what this guy does, right? And try and put what they call wrong arming, wrong shouldering, right? Get your outside shoulder inside of the block so that the ball is forced to spill to somebody else who is the edge player or the contain player, right? So you see he does exactly that, and he does it really tight to the down blocking tackle, which makes this thing, if it's going to work, the guard is going to have to kick him out, right? And the tight end is going to have to do a really good job of staying really tight, right? And being able to kick this guy out for a little lane that he's going to, the running back's going to have to see. It's a challenging thing to do, all right? When you get a team that attaches to your hip of the tackle and tries to spill everything, right? But we'll see, there are teams that run it when teams are heavy like this with the defensive end. If teams see that and game plan for it, there are teams that wrap it instead, right? To where if you imagine the tackle here is able to down block the minus, right? And this kid does the defensive end does exactly what he does, and the guard wraps him, seals him inside, you can still kick out with the tight end. Now you're just kind of running it. It's more of a B gap play in that case. And that actually happens a lot versus spill teams, right? Or a spill defense in any look. But most of the time you want the thing to hit in the A gap, up the hash. You need a patient running back. Now this can happen, right? The same exact thing can happen with the quarterback, right? You can do it with the quarterback. You can guarantee yourself a lighter box, right? And you can run the same thing with the quarterback. You can attach RPOs to it, whatever you want to do, right? But just drawing it out here, right? If we're running a counter to the right, we're going to double this 3-tech, right? So we want to create as much of a wall as we possibly can. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, they'll double up to the backer. But remember, right, we have 2 pullers, all right? So we're saying that we need to leave 2 guys for the 2 pullers. All right, so what these guys can do is honestly just double this guy into no man's land with this kind of a box, in my opinion, right? If he wants to fill inside, then yeah, one of them can come off pizza, right, and end up, we'll have an extra puller for nobody, right? So what you'll see here is, right, exactly that. They're just going to double, create as much horizontal space between them and the kick out as they possibly can, right? And technically him being the minus now, you can come up for him if you want eventually, but really just stay on it exactly like the right tackle does. Stay on it, right? Clean anything up, right? This thing's going to hit up the A gap. It's going to hit right now. You know that this guy's job is going to be very challenging to come off, right? So he ends up cleaning up, giving the play a chance to succeed. Now, technically, he would want to come off for the minus, but, in this case, he gave the play a chance to succeed. Now you watch, right, more of a box player from the defensive end or the stand-up overhang, whatever you want to call him, right? He's more of a box player now, right? He wants to contain everything inside of him, right? So what he's going to do is stay square to the line of scrimmage. It makes the kick out way easier, right? You can see the left guard pulls, right? And he has every opportunity to create horizontal space between himself and the wall. Now you just got to be patient as the ball carrier, right? Look at the tight end, do an absolutely perfect job getting square up and through the hole, making contact with the near V so that the ball carrier can hit right off your ass, right? That is textbook. That's awesome. It's obviously a super favorable box to run it into, but that's how the play should look. It's just a variation. You run it with the quarterback. You got an athletic quarterback, or even you don't even need an athletic quarterback to do that. I mean, you're running right up the field. You can get a quick 5 yards. All right, again, we're still running it into the open side here. I'll let this one play. All right, still running it when I say open side. I know most people know this, but just means away from, not at a tight end. All right, so you're running it at just the guard and tackle. Now, this is a different look, right? Way different than before. This is, and we talked about it at the end of the last video, right? This is a 3-down front, so we can't ID it the same. We can't point it the same. My favorite way to account for that, down one of the backside players. In the gap scheme, we down the first thing outside and backside. All right, so we're going to down this guy, treat him as a down lineman. So what does that mean? 1, 2, 3, 4 guys are down linemen. All right, don't think of number 38 there as a linebacker. He's not. He's a down lineman. Great. All right, now, if he was a down lineman and a true 3-tech, right, we know we would be, honestly, it would be down here, back to the down player, center back to the down player, right? All right. I know he has somebody in his gap, so he could technically chip on his way there. These two can really be in a combo mentality where, overall, he just wants to close the space now, right? And whichever way that 38 comes off, the appropriate guy can come, right? Or come off the block. And then your backside tackle, right? He's just gap, seal, hinge, whatever you want to call it. All right. Now we've got our guard to kick out. All right. We have our tight end for the point, right? And what a great P. Wow. And then you've got your minus here, your play side tackle, right? He has to be very, very square, right? If he starts turning his shoulders and attacking as much as he possibly can and not aiming at where number 7 is going to be, he's going to screw himself. All right. He's going to screw himself. So, oh, this is a great one, actually. So if you watch 64 here, the right tackle, all right, a lot of the times what you tell your right tackle is if on your square path up to where you're eventually going to be blocking the minus, right? If on your way up there, the defensive end crosses your face or plays into you, now this is where philosophy comes in, right? Clemson's telling their right tackle, I'm guessing, that if this happens, right, and this kid is playing the inside gap, throw your outside shoulder at him, your outside arm at him, right? Seal him inside, and now, right, you're the backside guard. You're pulling for that guy initially, right? Well, now pizza, you take mine, I take yours. All right. So you're pulling for him. He takes him. Who is he gonna get? Well, the tight end will end up taking him because he's the second puller. But it's all going to work out, right? Because 64 does such a good job of inviting this guy to take the inside gap, right? Now the guard can kick out, right? You watch number 84 here, stay tight, right? Now get inside out on number 7. Boom. We see the path that this thing has to hit on, right? It has to be tight, right? Now you get a good amount of push by 64 here. So this thing it's a little bit tight, but you can watch this thing. I mean, this is textbook as well. The only thing that kind of bounces it backside is 64 eventually does get beat across his face. All right. But it's happening 7 yards downfield. That's fine. We'll cut it back off. Right. So that's an absolutely great way to run it versus an odd front, especially, if you're running it on second or third and long where you get those odd front, like Pitt does, where they get in the 3 down stuff and they'll have a bunch of guys walked up dancing around. It's a good play call, especially quarterback run wise. All right. So we'll get into this a little bit here in a second, but just overall to kind of back it up and get back to the basics here. What the gap schemes, that we'll get into this later, but the gap schemes work, and the reason why they work, right, is when we pull a guard, right? So even more basic. We have gaps, right, on the offensive line. A sound defense accounts for all gaps. All right. Now, some defenses have safeties that are fitters in certain gaps and things like that. But most of the time, you're outnumbered in the box by 1, or you're even in the box and you have somebody as an overhang, or maybe it's one of the safeties that is that fitter to become an extra guy in the box. Right. But you want to account for all gaps as a defensive coach. All right. Now, when I pull this player here, I've now created a new gap. Right. So in order to account for that, right, I've eliminated this gap, still the same amount of total gaps, but I've eliminated this gap. All right. And I've created a new one located on the other side of the ball. When I pull 2, right, that means I'm doing that same exact thing, just times 2. All right. So in order to account for that, you'll see linebackers read guards, right? Because a lot of the times the guards are the pullers. All right. You'll see linebackers read guards. When guards pull, let's imagine, I think 7 starts here. All right. When guards pull, you'll see number 20 a lot of the times yells pull, pull, pull. Number 7 flies over the top, right, and tries to box everything inside because there's a new gap accounted for, right, and the backers will account for those gaps. All right. That's how it's handled a lot of the times. But the reason why gap schemes work is because you get these linebackers flowing over the top, trying to account for these new gaps, and you're running it at players that have great leverage on them already, right? So your left tackle has great leverage on him. So if the play is dependent on him being able to seal him inside, well, this is obviously going to be a good play because look at how much freaking leverage he has, right? It's from here all the way back to here. So that's the philosophy behind gap scheme. I don't know if I'm just speaking way too elementary, but that was how I learned it, at least. All right, so looking at this one, right, we have a stand-up, walked-up outside player. All right, so if you really want to just think about it, basically, we want to leave two guys for the pullers. These are the two outside guys, right? This is a dream look for the most part because of the fact that we know two things, right? We want to create this wall as far to the right as we possibly can, right? We have a 2-eye that we're going to down block with this right left guard. All right, number 69 is going to be on a direct path to where he thinks number 20 will be. All right, and if number 10 plays into this gap at all, you can chip him to get back on the other, to get number 10 back on the inside of 54. All right, but ultimately you're going to block him down, try and create a wall. It gets blown up because, right, now this is a spill kind of a thing to do, right? He's wrong arming and getting inside out on the tackle. So you can, or on the pulling guard rather. So you can assume that 7 had the outside contain. All right. But you see this a lot, right? You see defensive ends try and blow gap schemes up, try and blow pulling guards up, right? Because it does a really good job of tightening this whole thing down. Right? We want horizontal space between the wall and the kick out. When you do exactly what 96 does here, you create not only a pile up, but you also create a lot of, you eliminate a lot of horizontal space between yourself and the wall. Now this thing can still work out, right? It can definitely still work out, but the tight end has to stay true to the play. The tight end can't get all confused, worry about where number 7's going. Number 7 will not have a chance to make the play if he goes outside. All right, if he stays inside, great. Now you can kick him out. We'll run right off of 69's block. We're running off a safety that's 7 yards deep. That's great, but you can watch number 89 here, does a decent job, ends up getting tripped over. Now the first piece of the play, right? We want to create a wall, all right? The biggest pet peeve of offensive line coaches that I've known in my experience is when you're down blocking on a gap scheme, all right, and you start completely over involving your outside hand, right? And you're not square. You have to stay square. A lot of people call it a gallop technique. You have to stay as square as you possibly can on your path up without turning your shoulders like this, because now it's really hard to adjust back to a faster player than yourself and not just catch him like 69 does. We want to instigate contact. We want to push this wall right now. All right, he's already taken care of. Get going now to number 20. Keep yourself as square as you possibly can. So a couple things go wrong here for that to happen, right? But number 69 ultimately has to do a better job of being square so that he's not catching, right? That's going to kill the play. All right, so what we're saying pre-snap is we're going to double this guy, right, all the way into no man's land, into wherever we want, right? It doesn't matter. Let's just create this wall, double this guy as 45-degree angle as possible, all right, to create this wall. Your center, advantageous leverage on this block, excuse me. All right, your left tackle, probably get a piece of him for your center before hinging back out for the defensive end. Your guard pulling, right? Now this technically would be the defensive end here. You stand up, all right? All right, so you pull for him, right? Now you have your tight end to come up and through for the point, right? First thing, head up to play side. Wherever your minus is, that's where you aim your double team, right? Now number 94 ends up stunting to the inside, right? Which is fine. Right guard, just block him down just like he does, right? Now number 68, 69, the right tackle, whoever it is, right? Take a path to the minus, but ultimately if the minus isn't a threat, do exactly what he does, right? Clean up anything on the wall that's becoming an issue or a threat to the play, right? You'd love to see 69 here just clobber number 58, right? The defensive end right here. You'd love to see 69 here just clobber him, secure the whole block so that now we're literally running. You watch this thing. As long as you get a good kick out by your tight end or get at least square contact, you're going to do a lot of good things when you have a quarterback running the ball right now in this situation, in this picture with such a light box. All right, now a little bit different, right? We're running it at a tight end. All right, so this is a strong gap scheme, strong counter to a tight end, right? We're running it now, not just at a guard and a tackle. So you have to tell your tight end that's on the strong side, you have to either give him rules or you have to create tags to tell him what to do. All right, everything else is going to be the same. So we can still call it the exact same way. All right, we've got a 4 down front. So we're going to point the first thing, head up to play side. All right, we're going to minus here. There's your plus. He's in the picture because we're in a heavy set here. We've got a tightened down box. We've got a lot more guys in the box. All right, but we'll see what they end up doing to handle it. All right, good. All right, so this would be like more of having him in the gap scheme on the front side, in the backside gap to backside gapper mentality on the front side, and we'll see alterations of that come up here. All right, now obviously not super advantageous to have the plus in the box here, but watch how they handle it. Right, so we're saying we're going to double all the way back to the minus. Right, we've got our point here that we're pulling for. Now, usually you want to leave 2, right, for 2 pullers. So before we were kicking out the defensive end, right, what they're doing is they're saying, we feel confident that our tight end, number 85, can down block or at least seal him enough inside to where we'll be able to kick the next thing out. All right, so they do exactly that. Number 85 does a really outstanding job here of inviting him inside, right? If number 85 immediately flipped his hips to the outside, he would get a fight to the death of the stand-up defensive end there trying to fight back across his face. But instead, he takes a really good path a little bit inside out to invite that player to play inside of him, right? And when he does that, now he's just got to keep his hips a little bit more disciplined and throw his outside arm at him, right, and seal him inside. But ultimately, a really, really hard thing to do and a solid job. All right, now this is turning into more of a wrap play, right? This is turning into the guard really just wrapping everything inside, right, and the puller will follow. All right, so yes, we want this thing to hit up in the A gap, but when you start running it at a tight end, there's a couple other ways to handle it. But when you're doing it like this, and especially if it's not a true 6-eye where he can down block and create the whole wall, right? If that's the case, it's going to have to hit a little bit wider. Now that's accentuated by the fact that the player that the defensive or that the pulling guard would be pulling for is tightening himself to that defensive end. Right now, this picture, it'd be really hard for 52 to kill, be inside out on this guy. All right, you can still tell him to try and do it. All right, but then you'd have to, once you evidently, like would mostly happen, once he wins outside, then you have to walk around your hands and seal him outside. All right, or seal him inside rather. All right, and now you're still pulling with this is a tight end or wide receiver. I don't know what Colorado State has going here, but now you're still pulling for that point that you were pulling for before. All right, you're just not kicking out the defensive end with the pulling guard. All right, so there's a lot of different ways to run this. That's one of them. All right, I think this is pretty cool to just wrap the whole thing around, right? Then you're running off a safety. Right, it's a pretty good job here by the tight end. I think it's a really hard thing to do. You have to have a good tight end to trust that the wall on the front side won't just get immediately collapsed. All right, a little bit older here. But again, this is the same exact play. All right, now we just don't have a 6-eye or a head-up player on the tight end. So we can still point this thing the exact same way. Now, this is technically a 3-down front, whatever you want to call it. So we would actually down here or we just wouldn't account for this guy. We would down here probably. We would probably point here. All right, sorry, point there, minus there. So these two are working in a double team they're the edge of the wall up to the minus. All right, we're going to pull our guard for the plus. All right, really going to be the end man on the line of scrimmage. Right, he's going to walk up as this thing starts to develop. You can see it, right? All right, he's going to be the edge setter if you know that. All right, we'll pull for him. All right, we'll pull for him with our pulling guard, kick him out. Right now, our tight end has to do a really good job, get a little bit of depth, stay as square as you can, and pull for the point just like normal, right? So that's how we would handle this type of a box. A little bit of a different look, all right? But the tight end does something wrong here, lunges on the outside half, right? You don't need to have a kill shot by the tight end. You just need to be stout. A stalemate will do, but you have to attack the near knee, and you can't lunge like this, all right? Because if this thing, you watch this double team right here, all right, it is picture perfect, right? The double team is picture perfect. All right, we're saying that we're going to hit off of the tight end block. We're going to hit right off of that double team. So watch this thing. Boom, he misses outside in, right? And now the whole thing's blown up. Whereas if he didn't, and he made that block, right? Boom, we're right off the front side tight end's ass. All right. Now, a lot of the times people like to think about like whether or not we need to account for this guy or this guy. Look, if you have a good front side wall, all right, if you have a good front side wall, it is going to be really hard to navigate through all of that, right? If you have the front side taken care of, the back side is going to be really challenged to navigate through the whole thing. All right, so you watch this defensive end here, right? If you watch him, he does make it through, right? He does make it through. He kind of stunts, all right, and kind of realizes what's going on. But he's so far downfield, right? And it's really hard to navigate through all this stuff. So if your front side wall is good on a counter or a gap scheme run, you're usually going to be pretty good. All right, again, same play, running it, right? You're running it at your strong side tight end. All right, you're telling these guys, all right, here's your point. All right, we would down probably right here. First threat, outside in, backside. We'll down here. All right, our point. All right, there's our minus. So these two are doubling, right? They have really good leverage. They're doubling, trying to create as much horizontal space to the left, all the way to the minus. All right, he'd be down. Your center's all the way back on a 3-step, right? All the way back to that defensive tackle and a 4-eye. All right, you're going to pull your guard for really anything off the edge. Now we'll see how they end up handling this. All right, yeah, so you watch the guard here. You might be confused, but just stay on your track, kick the first thing out, right? So you watch this thing play out. Now the guard, right, goes up and through. But what you're immediately seeing is the guy that we were pulling for with the second puller, all right, your point ends up blitzing inside, right? Or whether it's a blitz or not, doesn't matter. He ends up going inside, right? And so number 64 or 54, the right tackle, does a really good job here, right? He's doubling back to the minus. Now, in the process of doing so, he gets a player in his backside gap. So you have to take it, right? So he comes off. All that means for the tight end now is you're just going to wrap around for the minus, right? And kick him inside, seal him inside if you can. If the minus flies over the top, then you seal him inside out, right? Either way, it's pizza, right? You take mine, I take yours. But 64 does a great job. Color in my backside gap. I got to take it now. All right, so this ends up kind of working out for the most part. You're running off of a safety. That's always a good thing. All right, the pulling guard does a really good job of just staying on track, kick the first thing that shows out. All right, the play side tight end does a really good job of being stout, right? Not all the time is your wall on the front side going to be super condensed down, right? You're not going to get a bunch of movement, but as long as, right, you stay on it, stay stout, right, you have a chance to hit it right off of the wall. Right. And that's exactly what happens here. You're running off a safety. All right. Again, now you're running at a front side tight end, but you got nothing in his backside gap, right? He's not blocking anybody. So you have some sort of a call, right? And again, just to stay consistent here. All right. If this is a 3 down front, we're downing here. All right. Here's our, this would be a little bit shaky. All right. But we would probably still point here and minus here. All right. So we would end up doing exactly what they do, right? We're going to combo to the minus, right? Our tackle and our tight end are going to combo to the minus, right? So it stays consistent with our rules, all right? We don't really concern ourselves with that player right there, all right? So they double up to the minus. Now you watch the tight end, right? Watch the tight end on the front side, right? He gets his outside arm too far involved, right? You only want to stay square, gallop technique. You only want to involve your outside arm if the player you're doubling to has already declared himself inside on the backside gap, whatever you want to talk. As long as that player is still a viable secondary piece of the double team, you have to stay as square as you possibly can. Otherwise, this is going to happen. There's no way from this position, right, that you're going to be able to come off and seal that guy inside. Your wall is completely sealed if you do that. But when you do this, you end up with run throughs. All right, so you're pulling guard, right? You're pulling guards coming around and through for the first thing off. All right, you're pulling for the point. All right, everything would have been great had number 84 sealed him inside. But unfortunately, there's an extra player that made it through the wall. All right, and so now you got to deal with that. Thankfully, number 2 makes a really good, breaks a really good tackle here. Kind of everybody's just in a clusterfuck here. Tough for the defense. All right, but that's how you'd want it to play out. All right, now Clemson does some interesting things. All right, so we've watched a bunch of clips now where the tight end, right? If we were going to pull this clip up and I didn't say anything, you'd have probably thought they're running counter this way, right? Pulling through, right? Instead, what Clemson does and a lot of teams do, right, is they start the tight end on the same side as the play, right? The play call side. All right. So if he's play side as a tight end, you're still going to pull your guard for the same player, kick him out. Your tight end is going to hopefully instigate, right? He's off the ball. All right. It's a little bit more complex than this, but if he tides across the line of scrimmage, right, a lot of the times the backers will react the same way as they do to pulling guards. So if 24's got his eyes on the tight end and he goes across, 24 can very well get himself out of position. All right. But you watch his reaction here, right? Watch 24. All right. The tight end starts going across, right? We've got, and again, to keep this thing consistent, we've got him on a path to get to the minus. All right. We are pulling for the point with the tight end. He's just on the same side. So we're going to kick number 6 out. He's going to shuffle this way, try and sell like he's going this way to instigate 24's reaction this way. All right. And now as he realizes and 24 realizes and he pulls himself back inside the kick out, hopefully 24 sealed himself inside. All right. And you can watch it play out in real time here. All right. What ends up happening, right? Your play side tackle has got to uninvolve his outside arm, right? For as long as I've been watching this, every single time the play gets derailed, it's something to do with the play side double team, right? And the outside arm getting involved, right? This thing, for it to be textbook and for it to have the most efficiency, you want this double team to occur and the wall to happen here, right? As soon as now he wins outside, now you really have to hit your tight end inside of this small ass little gap. There's nothing left there. All right. Thankfully, they've repped this clearly a shitload. They do an outstanding job of adjusting on the fly as that tight end does there. All right. But that is same side. You have your tight end starting play side. I've heard it called a bunch of different things. This is another look at it. All right. So you got a 3-tech front side, play side tackle, play side guard. I've got to do a really good job here. All right. Got to get movement. Got to make a wall on the front side. You've got your center blocking back. All right, your tackle, maybe help with the center's block just for a second, ensure he doesn't fly up the field. All right, and then gap seal hinge backside. All right, same thing, pulling for the end, right? And you have your tight end, sell it like this. It's absolutely perfect, right? You elicit 7's reaction here, gets himself a little bit back inside. All right, now you watch 84 pull up and through, same exact play we were running before. You're just starting your tight end on the other side. Kick him out, right? Kick him out with the tight end. All right. Now, number 1 really does an outstanding job, right? Number 71 ideally seals him inside. Number 1, the running back, does an outstanding job of reading number 71's block. Watch, right? 71 ends up winning inside out, right? Or outside in, right? And now 1 has to adjust on the fly, right? Really good job by number 1. All right, I put a bunch of plays on here. I'm trying to rip through them a little bit. All right, same look at it, right? 87, not so much, right? Not so much. Trust the play, right? We've got a wall going. 71's won this time. We've got our wall going. Kick him out, right? Trust the play. Sorry about that. Skip that one. All right, trust the design of the play. 87 jumps outside, right? We don't want that. We want this thing to hit up the A gap right now. All right, as soon as we start wrapping it outside like this with the tight end, yeah, they get a couple yards, but this thing is a lot more effective. All right, if we get movement on the double team on the wall, right, look at how this thing could hit right up the hash, right? Pretty impressive if that happens. Unfortunately, number 87 gets a little panicked there. All right. Now, you don't always have to pull just your guard and your tight end, right? You can pull your backside guard and tackle instead. All right. In doing so, when you pull your backside guard and tackle, usually offenses read this guy, right? So that's really all you have to do. Everything else can pretty much be the exact same. All right. So if we wanted to point minus, all right, we would have technically this would be, right, you'd have a double team all the way back to the minus. He's back. He's pulling for the defensive end. All right. Now, remember, we have a strong side tight end. So it's philosophically based between staffs how you want to handle that. All right. We'll see how they handle it. Front side. All right. Great. So what they're saying is they're going to make some sort of a call at the tight end position for the second puller. Now, the second puller being this tackle, he's got to communicate, hey, I'm up and through to the point. All right. So the point, the guy that you're going to pull for is going to be a lot wider. All right. Usually this is the case when you get an outside shade, whether it's a 7 or a 9. All right. And nothing in your inside gap. You'll tell the tight end, hey, make a call. Tell them that you're just going to down block on the point. All right. And then this thing will hit same way it did before. We're going to kick out the defensive end. Right, we're going to come up and through, and the play side, backside tackle now knows, hey, the point's not going to be there. It's going to be the next thing, right? So that's the way you communicate that. And we'll get to the other alteration here in a second, right? But great, at this point, if the tight end did a little bit better job winning on the wall, all right, we would have 64 here for 0, just the same way we did with the tight end, right? Unfortunately, the tight end front side, it is a tough job to ask him to seal that thing for especially for an extended period of time. But if you get a good one, right, that's a great option. All right, now same look at it here, right? We've got our point, we've got our minus. All right, we're going to go up and through, make the call for the backside tackle. All right, we're going to double this 3 tech all the way to the minus. Your center's back, pulling both of these, right? Pulling both your guard and tackle backside, reading him. All right, so you're going to book him. Now, looking at this picture here right now, right? Thankfully, the tight end is blocking the point because the backside tackle now is going to have to pick up this blitzer, right? You'll watch this thing. All right, now the tight end has to do a better job, right? You've got to be much more aggressive in creating the horizontal space between yourself and the kick out block. All right. You can't, I love the fact that he's staying as square as he possibly can. Right. But you have to account for everything, right? You have to attach yourself and your eyes to the near V of number 20, because this penetration is going to kill the play. Right. So you watch this from the tight end's point of view. Yeah, it's really hard, but you got to take this vertical angle, but keep yourself on the path to the near V. No matter where number 20 goes, it's a hard thing to do. All right. You got to trust your play side tight end to be able to run this play, or things like this can happen. All right, again, that ruins the whole play, right? Hard, but it screws the whole play. All right, the other option, right? You can run it at a tight end, play side, all right? But instead, if you get a 6-eye, or even sometimes teams do it with a 6, all right, you'll tell your front side tight end, you'll have some kind of a arc call or anything like that, where usually you want to tell him to kind of take a jab step at this defensive end, so that he remains true and doesn't just automatically attach himself to the tackle. All right, you'll take a little jab step inside and then arc for the next player out. All right, so we can still ID this thing the same way. Here's your point, here's your minus. Now this is technically a walked up plus, right? So you would just say you have it built in, you're going to arc for the plus. All right, now everybody else can do a similar thing that they were doing before. Right, we're going to double the play side combination back to our minus. All right, our center's back. All right, we're going to pull our guard. Right, now this is GT counter, so this is guard and tackle. We're going to pull our backside guard for the defensive end, right? The guy that we arced. Hopefully, if the tight end did a good jab step, did a good job of selling this guy, he won't attach to the tackle right away. All right, and we're going to pull our backside tackle for the point, just like we did before. All right, good leverage, really good play to run. You got to trust your tight end to be able to keep this thing sealed, keep this guy sealed outside. You got to hope that this defensive end does falls for the little jab step and doesn't just immediately attach himself to the tackle. All right, and then the only guy left, right, is the gap, seal, hinge, whatever you want to call it, backside tight end. All right, now, unfortunately, I think the tight end does a decent job of it, but unfortunately, he doesn't buy it at all as the defensive end, right? He does a really good job of attaching himself, right? He attaches himself to that play side tackle, right? And now, because everybody on Notre Dame is really well coached, right, at this point, they get a pulling guard and a pulling tackle. He immediately yells it, right? He immediately realizes it. They both fly over, right, and out leverage the play right off the bat. Right, so you see this play out. It's really hard for 64 here because of the fact that number 40 does an outstanding job of losing ground right away, right as soon as he's about to make contact. It's hard for 64. All right, but ultimately that's the reaction you get when you pull, especially if you're pulling a guard, especially if you're pulling a tackle, whatever. It's a really hard thing if you're well coached, playing a well coached defense. All right. So why is it that on play actions you usually have a guard pull? All right, that's the reason, right? You usually pull your guard when you're setting up a heavy pocket play action. All right, in some way, there's some that are more dangerous than others in terms of how you do it. All right, but the reason you do it is if you watch these linebackers, right, they see a guard pull, they're going to react how we just talked about, right? That's a really good way to get the linebackers bought in. Sometimes even like I know we do things where we'll pull the tight end across, we'll tide our tight end, all right, because we know we can elicit safety reactions, whether it's a spin, whether it's, all of a sudden they realize that he's going to have him in man coverage, right? Whatever it is, right? You pull guards to incite the linebackers' interests, right? And reactions from them downhill. All right. You tied the tight end a lot of the times to elicit safety spin, things like that. All right. And that oftentimes too, right? We talked about it on one of the Clemson clips. When the tight end goes across, a lot of the times, if you've got eyes on him as a backer, you're going to go across to account for the new gap, right? So it does a really good job of setting up the play action. You can obviously see why there. All right. Oh, I put this on here for fun. All right, this is the fun one. All right, so watch this thing play out. I'll shut up. All right, the shovel pass. All right, so what they're doing here, all right, what they're trying to do here, obviously, is the same exact thing. They're just not going to have a second puller. All right, so they're going to run, and this can be called a bunch of different things, but they're going to run everything that we just talked about. A play side double to the minus. All right, they're going to pull for the point. All right, but instead of having two pullers and kicking out the edge and pulling somebody else for the point, they're going to say, we're going to read the defensive end with our quarterback. We're going to pull for the point. All right, these two double all the way back to the minus. All right. Now, usually that is how it is run, and that's they read the defensive end, and the quarterback, excuse me, has the option. It's better if you want to get the edge to have your back start strong. All right, shuffle 2 steps with the quarterback, right, and read the defensive end. If the defensive end plays out, the quarterback has a lead blocker for him right there to the point. All right, and he takes the ball and keeps it. If 87 plays in and attaches himself to the tackle's down block, now the quarterback will pitch it. It's a really good way to get the edge. All right. Now they're doing it a little bit differently. All right. So I believe what they have called here is a down block here. Just like we said, they're pulling up and through for the point. All right. But rather than just reading him, all right, they're saying the quarterback is the guy that has the ability to get the edge. And if he plays out, the quarterback is going to take that wide path, just like the back would in the example I just gave. He's going to take the same path on the outside. If 87 plays out to it, he's going to pitch it to number 20 and on a what's called the shovel pass, right? He's going to pitch it to number 20, right? And then he'll have the lead blocker for the point there. All right. Unfortunately, they run this into a somewhat complicated defense, right? But you get crossfire. If you watch number 7, they're blitzing double A gap, all right? Crossfire blitz, all right? As this happens, right? Number 7 doesn't get picked up, right? It's really hard because the center, right? This guard and this tackle are thinking they're going back to number 7, all right? So if you're this guard, you're going to try and take a big enough piece of him so that you can kind of mitigate 64's difficulty of his job. All right. Now, as you do that, right, you realize number 7's coming right now, right? Both of them have to do a good job. We talked about interior blitzes and how it causes reductions, right? This causes the reduction outside, right? So the down block is now all of a sudden really hard for number 64, right? Now your point goes all the way backside, which would be positive for the play, but number 7 makes it through because of all the confusion it causes, picks the whole thing off. Now, whether or not that was actually the option that they were trying to run, I'm not 100% sure, because usually if you are doing that, you're going to want to block with your receivers for whoever it is that has the ability to get the edge, however you call it. All right. So if this guy, the one that they're reading, plays inside, the quarterback will take it and run. So you guys will block for him. Now, if you watch, they've got a man beater on here. I think it was some sort of a rub concept, or not exactly sure what they're trying to do. All right. But I think he has the option. If 87 played inside, I think the quarterback has the option to throw or run. That's probably the difference. All right. You can see, obviously, that's an unfortunate time to have that blitz called for Clemson there. Outstanding play by number 7. But that, I know that was probably long. I don't know how long, but I hope you guys enjoyed, learned something. And that'll be it. Let me know what you think.